Hello, my name's Kate and I am a yoga teacher. I'm delighted to have been asked by the team at Torfaen Sports Development to do some recorded sessions for people to take part in during the shutdown. So I've been teaching yoga in Torfaen for about 7 years now and practicing for a lot longer than that. And it's a great time to come to yoga. It's a great time to discover yoga because yoga works with 3 different elements of ourselves. So the physical body, yes, most people come to yoga or find it through the physical to begin with, the breath and the mind. And the reason it brings these 3 areas together is because whatever happens to one will affect the others. So in situations that we find ourselves in lately, there's an increase in anxiety, that lots more people are feeling stressed, and yoga can really help us deal with life situations. So just briefly, this session is for beginners, so it's helpful to have an understanding of what makes yoga different and what it is. The word yoga means to yoke, to a union, to bring together, and it brings together these 3 aspects, which is what really makes it stand out from other forms of activity and exercise. The nervous system is made up of 2 parts. So you have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is about sleeping, resting, digesting food, nurturing the mind and the body. And then you have the sympathetic nervous system, which is more adept at dealing with fight or flight situations. So very much the situation that we're in now. And in times gone by, in caveman times, as I often say, fight or flight was enabled us to respond to threat. So we lived out in the open, we might have had our cozy cave, but we might have come into contact with bears and tigers. We needed to either be able to run from those things or fight them, or sometimes we might freeze. And when this happens, the first thing that happens in the physical body, in the physical sense, is that the breath will speed up to help us deal with this threat. Also what happens is that all of the blood comes away from the main organs to the outer extremities of the body, which prepares us to run, to physically, adrenaline shoots all around us, preparing us to either run or stay really still or prepare for fight. So what happens when everything goes to the extremities? Our digestion gets affected, our hormone levels get affected, all of the things, the day-to-day systems that keep us running, keep us calm, keep us balanced, can be affected. And even before the coronavirus situation, a lot of people in today's society spend a lot of time on the edge of this stress wave, which is not good for the physical body. And it's also very normal. We need a degree of both. We need the sympathetic to have the drive to get up and out of bed in the morning. We need to be able to switch off at the end of the day and go to sleep. So we quite often will find that anybody can have fluctuations in these rhythms, and yoga really helps us to address that and to come back to ourselves, calm things down and manage life a bit better. So hopefully that explains why it's so helpful at times like this. And we have many benefits from this situation. We have more time with our families, we have more time to try new things. I certainly wouldn't have been talking to you on a video without this situation. So there are lots of silver linings that are going to come, and if we can introduce you to a yoga practice and make that part of your life, that's a wonderful thing. So without much further ado, I think we'll just start, and we'll start with the physical, so the where the body is in the room. Now I appreciate, especially complete beginners, you may not have a mat, so you don't need many things to practice yoga. If you have got a yoga mat, then great. It's not the end of the world if you haven't, but please, whatever surface you're practicing on, make sure it's not one where you're going to slip. So don't put a blanket on a tiled floor, for example. You need to be able to stay in one position, and also just something between you and the floor ideally. Carpeted floor would work probably fine. And then we also sometimes, it's quite nice to have a blanket nearby, maybe some cushions. There are different props that we can use in our practice which make it more comfortable and accessible for everybody, and I'll try and refer to those as we go along. Please appreciate I can't see you, I've probably never met you, so I have no idea what's happening in your body right now. It really is your responsibility to look after your own body and only do what you're happy to do. Now, yoga should never be painful. Sometimes it might be, I would call, it might edge on discomfort because you're trying something new with your body, but don't be in pain. If it's a new sensation, if it's just slightly uncomfortable, you can explore and see where that goes. If it's painful, I would say stop, and you can always, I'll make sure my contact details are with this, you can always message me if you have any specific questions. Equally, if you have any conditions that you want to check about as well. Okay, so the main thing is safety before you start to practice. So, yeah, if you come into your, it's probably best if this is the first time you're watching this video to watch the whole way through and then join in the second time around. It's not great when we're practicing to be turning the head and twisting the neck and trying to watch what I'm doing. If you watch it through once, you'll have a good idea, and then hopefully the instructions will make sense second time round. So we're going to start in a position called child pose. This is knees on the floor. You can bring the big toes together and knees quite wide apart. Take a breath in here, and as you breathe out, just let the hips sink back towards the heels. Now, if they don't come down this far, what can make it much more comfortable is to have a rolled blanket and place that on your calves so that you just kind of come onto the blanket, or even a couple of pillows, just something between the shins and, the calves and the hamstrings for you to ease onto. And then we walk with the hands forwards, and if you can bring the forehead to the floor, you can do that. If it's not quite happy coming down that far, you can make two fists with the hands so the forehead rests on the fists, or again you can use a few cushions so that the forehead can rest. And this resting of the forehead is important because, again, that physical position sends a message to the nervous system that all is well and that you can actually switch off. So it does send a message directly into the physical body. So once you've found your comfortable position in child pose, just start to let the weight of your body release into the mat, into the ground. And take a few moments to really notice how you're feeling in the physical sense right now. So checking in with the whole body from the tips of the fingers to the soles of the feet. And you might notice or become aware of areas where you've had an injury in the past, or perhaps you've had an operation. By the way, if you've had an operation within the last year, please do contact me before you practice. You may notice areas that were fine yesterday and feel a bit more tender today. You're just checking in with the whole physical body, really noticing how you are. And of course, with the wider situation at the moment, we might be holding tension, more tension in anywhere in the body, but we tend to hold lots of tension in the neck and the shoulders. So just feel into each of these areas and see where you can just let go a little bit. And then take your awareness to your breath. So not trying to change the breath. Just start to notice your breath. Have a sense of curiosity about your breath. How does it come into the lungs. Which part fills first? Is it the chest or the tummy? And watch it leave. See what happens to the rest of the body when you breathe. And you may well notice that just this simple act of turning our awareness to our breath has slowed things down a little bit. So as long as that feels comfortable and soothing, enjoy. Don't ever be straining for breath or trying to force the breath at all. Just let the movement, the flow of the breath happen naturally. This is a lovely position to really breathe into the back body as well, so you feel the whole torso kind of opening on the inhalation and relaxing on the exhalation. And then just for a moment before we come up from this position, take note of your frame of mind. How are you feeling right now in the emotional sense? And whatever thoughts or words come up, just acknowledge them. There's no right or wrong. Even for argument's sake, if you felt frustrated with this practice, just acknowledge that. Don't label it, don't judge it. Just feel the feelings, recognize them, and breathe into them. So on our next inhalation, we're going to gently lift the forehead, look towards the hands, and slowly walk the hands back in towards the body. So you come into more of a kneeling position, and we're going to take the feet out to the side and around, lowering down into what we call semi-supine, which is lying on our back, feet about hip width apart, and the heels comfortably close to what we call the sitting bones, the bottom basically. So releasing down onto the spine. And in this position, it's important that the nose stays in line with the belly button. So you're not turning the head to look at the screen, you're just releasing down into the ground. You can bring the hands down by your sides. And find a comfortable spot for the feet. So if there's any tightness in the knees, you may feel better taking the feet slightly further away. Some people like them quite close. Just feel that the whole body can be in this position without too much effort, and also feel that the tops of the legs and the lower halves of the legs are fairly evenly balanced. Arms down by your side, you can bring them in quite close, palms turned down, relax the shoulders down, and on your next inhalation, just tilt your pelvis towards your chin. So you're breathing in, tilting the pelvis towards the chin, the tummy muscles might engage slightly and the lower back presses into the floor. And as you breathe out, tilt towards your heels. And the lower back probably rises slightly away from the floor. So just stay with this movement for a few breaths. Breathing in, pelvis tilts towards the chin. Breathing out, releasing towards the heels. And we do this a lot in yoga. We combine the breath with the movement pretty much all of the time. But as a beginner, don't worry too much if you're breathing in when I'm saying out or out when I'm saying in. The main thing is that you keep breathing, and the combining with the movement will come. So you may notice as you breathe in and tilt towards the chin, you can almost feel the body wants to lift. It's like the feet start to get ready to press down, the shoulders start to get ready, the pelvis feels nice and light. Exhale towards the heels, but next time we are going to allow this lift, so still begin with inhaling, tilt towards the chin and start to peel the spine up and away from the floor, only as far as it will comfortably go first of all. Exhale, gently release back down. You can imagine your spine as a delicate string of pearls, and we tilt towards the heels again at the end of the exhalation. So inhale, tilt the pelvis towards the chin, gently drawing your pearls up towards the ceiling. Exhale, releasing back down. A nice gentle flow, wave of movement for the spine. Inhale takes you up, exhale takes you back down. Okay, take a rest there for a moment. There's a couple of extra things we can add in here, which are optional. I'm just going to adjust the camera slightly and move down the mat a little bit so that you can see. So the same movement with the spine. This time I'm going to add in the arms, and only do this if it feels right for you. Otherwise you can stick with the previous version. So I'm breathing in. At the same time as I tilt the pelvis and start to peel away, I'm going to let my arms float up and overhead. So at the top of the in-breath, the arms are on the floor behind me, the spine is lifted, and you can see the chest comes towards the chin, which alters the breathing ever so slightly. You're not going to hold it this long. Exhale, bring the arms back down. So we do this a few times, trying to combine the movement with the breath, inhaling to rise up, exhaling to release back down. Like I say, you can always go back to the previous version, or do indeed take a rest if it feels too much at any point. We'll do one more like this, breathing in, float the arms up, breathing out, releasing back down. And then another thing we can add in to this is a hold. So we've been working dynamically, we've been moving the body with the breath. Option now is to hold a position. So there are a few different ways we can hold. We'll start with quite a basic hold. So again, I'll show you before, and then you can join in. So I'm going to start with the arms down by my sides this time, leaving them there. I'm going to breathe in. Peel the spine up and away from the floor, nose is in line with the belly button. Here I shift onto my shoulders a little bit more and interlace the hands underneath me. And then I can use the arms and the feet to press down to help me engage in this lift. It's a slight back bend. Think of pressing down to get the lift rather than trying to lift up. Use the floor to push against. You can hold it for a few breaths. Feels good to breathe in this position. The heart center is really open. And when we're ready to come down, we ever so gently release the hands, let the shoulders come back out. Exhale, slowly let the spine come all the way down. When you reach the ground, take a breath in. As you breathe out, draw the knees towards the chest and gently rock from side to side. This is a lovely movement, nice one to do at the end of any day really. It's kind of self-massage for the spine. You can circle, use the arms to circle the legs a little bit as well, easing out. And if you do find any sort of sore spots, maybe just hold on them for a few breaths, and that will help the body to release the tension around that area. And then if you're circling, reverse the circles. Good, and come back to center, let the feet come down. Roll onto one side, and we're going to come up onto all fours. So bringing the wrists now underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Now in terms of my hands, either middle fingers or index fingers are pointing forwards, and I'm trying to engage as much of my hands as possible with the floor. In terms of my wrists are either directly underneath the shoulders. If you do suffer with your wrist, if you have pain in the wrist, you could take them just slightly forwards, so there's a little bit of an angle through the arms. You could even work on the forearms. So the elbows come down underneath the shoulders, the forearms are on the floor, the hands are on the floor. So just have a little play around and see which one feels right for you, and you can always change if you need to. In terms of the knees, they're underneath the hips, and the lower legs are tracking straight back behind the knees. So when you look between your knees, if you see your feet, just adjust them, and then we're in a good starting position. So here I'm going to press the floor away, and you can probably see how that engages the shoulders a bit differently. And I'm going to keep this pressing action throughout the movement. So pressing the floor away, I'm going to breathe in, and I'm going to lift the crown of the head and the tail. So the tummy drops towards the floor, and I get a really nice stretch in the front body. You can hear even the throat opening out here. Only if it's comfortable for your neck, you can lift the chin a little bit. If that's uncomfortable, just keep the head more neutral. Exhaling, I'm tucking under, crown and the tail tucking under, and here I draw my belly button towards the spine. Inhaling to open the front body. Exhaling, opens the back body. So you'll find a really nice flow with this breath, and it's a wonderful stretch for the back. It's a great way to check in with your spine. And it's also very self-limiting, so you shouldn't be able to overdo it. You shouldn't be able to overstretch the back, you know. Oh, it's a self-limiting movement, so the body will only go as far as it's comfortable to. And you may well find that as you take a few breaths here, as you ease in, it becomes a bit more free-flowing, and perhaps it does feel like there's some more movement, but don't force anything. After your next exhale, come back to a tabletop position, so neutral spine, and here it can feel really good to just move in whatever way the body is telling you to. So really listen and just start by playing around. So maybe take the hips side to side a little bit, maybe start to rotate through the hips even. And this will free out, ease out what we call the fascia, which is a connective tissue, covers the whole body underneath the skin, and it can hold scar tissue and things like that. It helps you just release a lot of the tightness in the body. And again, you'll find areas that it just feels really good, and maybe hold it there for a little while and then keep moving. You can get as much or as little into this movement as you want to. Take it forwards and back. Enjoy. Really useful here to close your eyes so you're not outwardly focusing. You bring all of your awareness inwards and just get to enjoy the movement through the body. You may hear some snaps, crackles and pops. This is not pressure, sorry. This is around the joints. You're kind of moving things around the joints and releasing air pockets and things like that around the joints that just sit there normally. We're not aware of them because we tend to make the same movements a lot of the time. So moving differently, the body can express itself differently. Okay, coming back to a neutral spine. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, we'll come back to our child pose. And again, at this point, just check in at the 3 levels. So how is your physical body feeling right now? How is your breath doing? It might be slightly faster, just let everything settle back down. And how is the mind? Where is it compared to the beginning of the session? How do you feel after this very subtle, gentle movement? So when our breath is feeling resettled and we're feeling ready to move again, on the inhalation we're going to come up to all fours, bring the knees back underneath the hips. They might have shifted slightly, and we're just going to do one more final thing before a short relaxation. So tuck the toes under here. I'm going to breathe in, and I'm going to let the exhale take me into downward facing dog. So this is a kind of upside down V position. I'm pressing into my hands. My neck is nice and relaxed, so the crown of the head's dropping towards the ground. And it's absolutely fine here to bend the knees slightly, especially if that gives you more length in the spine. So don't worry if your feet are not flat on the floor. Many people might be more kind of here. Just let the heels release towards the floor. This is a lovely stretch for the whole of the back body. So it comes all the way up the hamstrings, over the pelvis, down the spine, into the arms. It's also a little bit of work for the body. We're weight bearing through the wrists and the shoulders. And it's also what we call an inversion. So an inversion in yoga is anything where we take the head below the heart. So be aware of that. It can slightly alter the blood pressure. You don't have to hold it anywhere near this long. You can come down whenever you're ready. So just bring the knees down on an exhalation. And either come back into child pose or just sit back on the heels. And we're going to do a short relaxation now to finish. So if you want to lay down on your mat, I'll show you, because again this is the beginner's session. So we have a posture called shavasana, which these words all come from Sanskrit, which is an ancient Indian Hindu language. Shavasana actually translates into corpse pose. It's not as bad as it sounds. It just means that we're really still. So we lie down, again nose in line with the navel. We take the feet slightly wider than the hips and let the toes drop out to the sides, and we take the hands away from the body so the arms are in a gentle V, palms turned upwards, and we rest in this position. So if you do have your blankets, now is a good time to lay a blanket over the body. If laying completely flat on your back is not comfortable for you, I'm just going to shimmy down a bit so you can see my head. You can come into a similar one to semi-supine that we did before, so you can bend the knees here, especially if that takes pressure off the lower back, but take the feet slightly wider than the hips and let the knees rest against each other, so then the body doesn't have to work at this position. Nose stays in line with the navel, and we rest here. If being on your back is just not comfortable for you at all, you can come into what we call flapping fish position in yoga. So for this one, we come onto our sides, we rest the head on the lower arm, we bring the top leg in front, and the bottom leg can be outstretched. And whichever position works best for you, relax into it now. And when you're feeling ready to, just gently close the eyes. Whenever we close our eyes, we're taking our awareness inwards, coming away from the outer world, really coming into ourselves, which for some people is not the most comfortable place to be. So don't worry, if it feels that way for you, just experience this. We're just going to be here for a few minutes. Once again, release the weight of your whole body into the support of the ground. Feel the ground rising up to support you. Take your awareness to the area just above the crown of your head. Releasing any frown you might be holding on your forehead. Letting go of tension in the jaw. Relaxing all the way down the spine. Releasing the weight of the pelvis into the support of the ground. And releasing and relaxing all the way down the legs to the soles of the feet. Your whole body resting and supported. And all we do here is breathe. Breathe. Physically let go. The physical movement is done. And as thoughts come into your minds, just as easily as they come, let them go. Our minds were made to think. Don't get frustrated by the thoughts. Just let them in and let them go. Imagine that they're floating by like clouds. Taking a deeper breath in now. Start to bring some movement into the fingers and the toes. Maybe start to rotate through the wrists and the ankles. And on your next inhalation, float the arms up and overhead. Come into a full body stretch from the tips of the fingers to the tips of the toes. And as you breathe out, let the arms rest overhead. Bend the knees to bring the soles of the feet to the floor. Take a deep, full breath in here. Breathing out and rolling onto whichever side feels good. So your head is supported on the lower arm. You can draw the knees up towards the chest. The other hand is just in front of the chest in a lovely fetal position where you feel safe, supported and grounded. And just take a moment of gratitude here to yourself for trying this practice today, for introducing yourself to some yoga. And gratitude for your amazing body and all the things it does for you every single day. And if you haven't already, gently blink the eyes open. We're going to come up slowly and carefully back to a comfortable seated position, and you don't, I should have said at the beginning, but you don't have to sit cross-legged. You can sit however is comfortable for you, and just make sure that the sitting bones can release down into the ground. So there's a heaviness in the lower body rising up through the spine. Take the hands either side. We finish with 3 breaths together. I'm going to tilt this a bit more so you can breathe together. So we're breathing in, reaching out and up with the arms. The palms find each other overhead. If it's comfortable for the neck, you can gaze towards the thumbs. Exhale, bring the hands back to the heart center. Breathing in, reaching out and up. Exhale back. And once more, breathing in, opening, reaching, lengthening. Exhale. And at the end of our yoga practice, we take a slight bow, say namaste. Namaste means that the whole of the wonder of the universe in me sees and recognizes the whole of the wonder and the universe in you and in everything, and that is a beautiful thing. Thank you so much. Hopefully see you again. Namaste.